We're live on Talkin Dawgs. The mustache has returned. The pimp chair is here. We're ready for a great night of Mississippi State sports talk and whatever else you guys want to talk about. This is a very laid-back atmosphere here. Of course, there's no way that you can possibly be serious with a mustache like this or a fluffy chair that I'm sitting in. There's no way. So, we're not going to be serious. We're going to talk Mississippi State sports, though. We will be serious in some regard. We'll discuss kind of what happened for Mississippi State on Saturday night. Stephen Augustinelli, don't you dare. 7-16, 7-15, whatever. We had a good conversation after the game on Saturday. Actually, from around Stephen Augustinelli's seats, I saw Stephen sitting to the right of the press box. I decided to go stand close to where he was and do my post-game report, I guess, from Davis-Wade Stadium. I had to get a little water there. Superior catfish, by the way. Superior in every way. And we had a good conversation, a breakdown. If you want to talk further or hear more about the ball game in a little more detail, I'm not going to go all the way into what happened on Saturday, but last Saturday I did a post-game reaction on the game, broke down the game a little bit more. So if you want to go watch that, that's on my channel, and had a good conversation there. So you can go look at that if you want to. But basically, everybody knows Mississippi State won that ball game against Southeastern Louisiana, 48-7, and of course there was a lot of unrest inside the stadium. Yes, there was a lot to be a little concerned about in the ball game. I thought the first quarter left a lot to be desired. I didn't think that the second quarter was great, but State was getting better as the game went on. The second half is what you were looking for from Mississippi State, and in the grand scheme of things, Mississippi State won the ball game 48-6 or 48-7. If someone would have presented me a stat sheet and the score said 48-7, Mississippi State had over 500 yards of offense. Southeastern Louisiana had 200, and the bulk of that yardage came on one drive. If you would have given me that, I would have said I'm going to take that. 48-7, 500 yards of offense, 200 yards defensively. That's something that I think most people would have been on board with. So I can't really nitpick at what I saw on Saturday when you understand that you have two new coordinators. There's going to be some kinks to work out offensively. There's just not a whole lot of things to be upset about for me. And I understand a lot of people are more concerned about some things that they saw moving forward when you got the LSUs and the Alabamas coming up. I get that. It does need to be fixed for Mississippi State, but there's just not a whole lot of things that I'm really concerned about in regards to Mississippi State in that first game. So I thought they got the job done, 48-7, boom, boom, in and out. You got a lot of guys playing time. That was a big thing. Ton of true freshmen played. Ton of redshirt freshmen played. We saw a lot of what I wanted to see was that defensive line getting a lot of guys in there. Travion Williams played a bunch. Calvin Dinkins played a bunch. So it wasn't anything to be totally upset about. I liked what I saw for the most part. So 48-7, State beats Southeastern Louisiana. Got a huge game coming up this weekend. A good little tune-up game for Mississippi State with what's ahead. You got to win this ball game against Arizona, and I think you need to look good in this ball game. I think that you need to look a lot better than you did in the first half against Southeastern Louisiana. I think State's got to come out and kind of take control of this ball game early. Anytime you're playing teams like this that are not favored coming into the ball game and you're hosting a ball game, the best way to handle these games is to come in, step on the gas early, and take the life out of these teams. When you leave these teams in the ball game in the second half, they start to believe they can get these upsets. That's when upsets happen. Upsets happen when teams have that belief in the second half that they can win these games on the road. And for Arizona, a team that doesn't play a whole lot of SEC ball games, in environments like this. This is one of those games you got to come in and choke the life out of them early, get them rattled, and make them tap out. So that's what State's got to do in this game. They got to assert their will, especially up front. They got to be better up front. And I didn't think the offensive line was great. Defensive line, I think, could have been better too. I saw a little more from the defensive line than the offense. They got to be a lot better up front in controlling the line of scrimmage, I think. All right, with that said, we will get into some questions and comments. My friend Stephen Agustinelli is just like excited tonight. I love it. He's all over the place with these questions and comments. Kobe, good to see you, Kobe. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Kobe Walker, have you heard anything on Spivey, Jaquarius Spivey? Nothing new. I don't think anything's really changed there. Zach Arnett was asked about it at the press conference on Saturday, and basically no news to provide there. They appealed the process. Now this isn't something that was just thrown on Jaquarius. He's known that this was a possibility. They've been having to work through this for a long time now. It was just kind of thought that things were going to work out for him because they had the text messages from Spivey and his advisors at TCU that were telling him that everything would be fine. He was going to be able to transfer, be eligible, all that. So they thought with the evidence that they had everything in their corner. I mean, you have a kid that has already graduated. He's a graduate student, so he should be eligible. That's how it works in most places. And it just made logical sense that he was going to be eligible. But it turns out it wasn't that easy. So State's been fighting it. The ruling comes down for Spivey that he's not going to be eligible to play. And State appealed it. That appeal was denied. So there's not a whole lot more Mississippi State can do. He can take legal action against the NCAA, and people have done that before, taken action towards the NCAA, and they've ended up winning their appeals and they've been eligible. So that's an avenue that he can take, and I don't know if that's going to be what he does, but he can certainly do that if he wants to. But basically, Zach Arnett basically just said on Saturday, same thing that he said, I think, on Thursday night at his Dog Talk, that, it's just for a group of people that say that they're all about the student athletes and they're all about their well-being, they're not showing that in this case. The hope is that he comes out of this and he's allowed to play at some point, but I'm not optimistic on that. I don't know if that's going to happen. My hope, and I think the coaching staff's hope too, is if he doesn't get to play, he has an opportunity to play next year. He gets another year granted to him. We'll see if that happens. Zachary Treadway, just want to tell you that you have a beautiful Fu Manchu. I appreciate that, Zachary. Is this technically a Fu Manchu, though? I got to see the definition of Fu Manchu. I always thought Fu Manchu was like you have a little bit of a little something going. I guess that this is technically a Fu Manchu. We have a picture of Hulk Hogan on here, which, if I bleached it blonde, I would basically be Hulk Hogan. We both have the same size biceps. We're both millionaires. We're both wrestling stars. I would basically be Hulk Hogan. Sam Elliott is on here. I mean, I'm in great company here. Love it. Stephen, my good friend Stephen Agustinelli, who is otherwise known as the Godfather. On third down, I love that TD pass to Jaden Walley. Agree. I thought that was a great play call. I saw a lot of really good play calls in the game. I thought the scheme and the play calling was great. There was a lot that I saw in that game that really excites me for Mississippi State offensively. I think there's a lot of things there for the taking if the guys execute. I just think that there wasn't as much execution as they needed to be, and it's game one. I mean, it's going to happen that way. Offensive line's got to get better, and I think they will. This is a very experienced unit that has. I mean, these guys have. They have the talent. They have the experience in the past in run blocking. I think it's just one of those deals where you go from running the same offensive line sets for 3 years for a lot of these guys that it does take a little bit of time to get back into that cohesive unit. So I think that's going to be fine. Need to be better in perimeter blocking. The wide receivers have got to get better there. But the play calling, the stuff that we saw with Mike Wright, the pre-snap motion, it was great. I think that's going to create a lot of issues for opposing defenses. There's so much you can do with that, with the pre-snap motion. And I believe that's what you saw in that play that Steven's talking about with Wally. I think there was some motion there. You roll out and you have a big play there. So I think that was a good play. And it was refreshing to see something other than a halfback dive and a goal line fade from Mississippi State inside the 5. It was always painful watching State inside the 5-yard line. It almost felt like it was a major accomplishment to score when you got in there. But I will say State got better in red zone offense. I thought last year it was a little more common to score down there. Steven, if you switch the halves, fans are less worried. Yeah, that's a good point. If State comes out and scores a bunch of points in the first half and they look good in the first half and they kind of coast the rest of the way and win 48-7 like that, I don't think a lot of people are as concerned as they were. But I think most people, just on my experience seeing Twitter and the message board, it seemed like most people realized, it was probably jumping the gun a little bit. I think more often than not, what I saw after the game was people that were pleased with what they saw. There was a lot of, why did we hire Zach Arnett and stuff like that in the first quarter that I thought was just way over the top, but that comes with every game. But I thought by the end of the game, I think people realized maybe we overreacted a little bit. I think for the most part, people were excited. And pleased. So I think that was by the end of the game, I think people felt a lot better. JC, you look like you're drinking a liter of cola. Are you Team Ramrod? Liter of cola? Yeah, I'm kind of growing on this mustache. I'm not gonna lie. My nieces today said that I looked like a rooster on Top Gun. So what can I say? 44, Southeastern Louisiana had some success when they went to the left side of the field. I'm trying to think. I mean, yeah, a lot of toss sweeps had success there. I think mostly their success, the most success I saw them have was that one possession. And I wonder how much that was just, guys just kind of out of position, things like that. I mean, I thought by the rest of the game, they were pretty dominant on defense. And when some guys got in there off the bench, I thought they had a little more success too. At linebacker, defensive back, stuff like that. But a few of those defensive changes were good for him. JC, anyone ask Arnett about injuries? Curious if he treats him like Mullen and Moorhead. He was asked today, and I wasn't able to be there today because of I live 30 minutes away, and we have enough people there. I just decided today I was going to hang out with my family, so I didn't go today, but I did watch the press conference. And he was asked today about Xavion Thomas, answered that question very well, I thought. He came out and basically said that they could have played him this past week, but decided against it, decided to let him heal another week. And he's expected to be back this week. So as far as his injury policy, He's been pretty vague in the past when we've talked about him. I don't know if that's going to change. I don't know if he just decided it was worth it to mention something with Xavion. I don't really know what his policy is. He hasn't ever said, I don't talk about injuries. We haven't had a lot of conversations with him about it, so I'm not sure. But today, he was very upfront with Xavion Thomas. And we mentioned it on this, I think we mentioned it on here last week. I can't remember. Maybe I just mentioned it on the board. Maybe not. Uh, if you didn't know, Xavion Thomas 2 or 3 weeks ago was stepped on his ankle and cut open. And they had to sew him back up. He had stitches. Thought he was back, thought he was ready to go. Got stepped on again, same spot. Stitches pop out. And so it was just one of those deals where it was kind of precautionary. He's fine. He's not hurt or anything. He was a little banged up, but he could have played this past week if they really needed him. And I think it was smart on their part to let him heal up, let the stitches heal up completely, and have him full go for this stretch here, because they're going to need him these next. They're going to need him the rest of the year, really, but especially these next 4 weeks, they're really going to need him with Arizona, LSU, South Carolina, Alabama, and this is a tough stretch coming up for Mississippi State. Also from JC, will Tulu and Xavion be on the field at the same time, and does Xavion take reps? And who does Xavion take reps from? Very well could. Xavion has worked outside and inside, so he can work the slot, he can work outside, doesn't matter, so he can be on the field at the same time. As to who he takes reps from, it could be Creed, it could be spelling Tulu, he could be spelling Jordan Mosley, those guys. C. Lee, the reports have been that Mike Wright improved his passing quite a bit over the offseason, but how do you think he would do if given the opportunity to make those throws down the field? I think he'd be okay. I think that might have a little stronger arm than Will, but I would give Will the edge on accuracy downfield. He's gotten a lot better, yes. That's why, I didn't put a whole lot into the fact that he was not throwing the ball on Saturday, because I think at some point they're really going to utilize him in the passing game too. It's just now when we recorded the podcast. I think that we're going to see him throw the football a little bit this week. That would be my guess, is he didn't throw it this past week to not put out a whole lot to Arizona, and they just see a guy that's kind of a gimmick. He comes in, runs the zone read, and that's it. I don't think that's going to be the case for him all season long. I think even if he doesn't do it this week, at some point you're going to see him fake the zone read and roll out to his right and throw downfield or something. I mean, and there's going to be some people that's wide open because they're going to be biting on the zone read. I think he's a guy that can really help you in some RPO concepts, some play action. I would be shocked if he isn't doing more than just running the football at some point, because he's just too talented and he has grown as a passer. But he definitely looked good on Saturday, I thought from a running standpoint, there's just not many guys like him. Michael Wood, who are the playmakers for Arizona to watch out for? Well, first and foremost, it's their quarterback, Jaden DeLaura, who last year I didn't think had a good game against Mississippi State. And I'm going to bring up their stats so we can talk about what they did last week. I think they played Northern Arizona. But Jaden DeLaura was a guy, you were coming into that game last year, you were really worried about his ability to run out of the pocket, extend plays. And he showed that a little bit, but I thought he was a little too erratic back there. He didn't have a lot of poise. And I'm interested to see how he's grown this year. Last week, 18-24, 285, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Now, he had a huge first game last year, too, before they played Mississippi State. So I don't know what you really take away from that ball game. I believe it was Northern Arizona that they played. Let me see. Yeah, Northern Arizona won that game 38-3. So, the defense looks, I don't know. The defense I would guess looks a little better. I mean, last year they beat San Diego State game 1. So that was a little more concern coming in the game. And they had such a huge game from Jaden DeLaura in that ball game. And also from Jacob Cowing. It was kind of it puts the antennas up for that game. So coming into this game, it's gonna be tough from a playmaker standpoint. And Michael Wiley, Arnett talked about him today, a guy that they can line up at slot. He can go out there and be a receiver for you. He can line up in the backfield and really hurt you as well. So from a running perspective, those two are dangerous. And then in the receiving game, Jacob Cowing last year coming into the game, I think he had led the country in receiving. Last year, State really held him down, which they had Emmanuel Forbes, and I'm sure this year they'll have DeCam Richardson on him as well. And then the wide receiver McMillan, I believe, was a 5-star coming out of high school. He had 3 catches for 65 yards last week. Cowing 3 catches for 38. Both of them had a touchdown. They're going to have some guys out there. I'm not real sure what their defense looks like. I didn't think they were that impressive last year. But, it's a team that State cannot afford to look past. I mean, they've got to come out and definitely play better than they did on Saturday. This isn't a team that you can just, roll over, get out of the bed, and just stomp in the ground. I mean, this team is capable. Zachary Treadway, I think it's still too early to say, but I would imagine that the second cornerback spot is still wide open. Yep, still wide open. Didn't see anything that really solidified that spot for Asias Ferge there. I thought DeCarlos Nicholson came in, had some good reps. So, it's still there's a lot of positions that are still wide open. I don't think the left tackle spot is nailed down. We saw Percy Lewis in there, and Dollar Bill Johnson started at left tackle. We even saw some Leon Bell out there at right tackle, I believe. So there was a ton of guys repping on Saturday. I don't think anything is set in stone just yet. So, yeah, I say I don't think anything. I think there are several positions, but at the position battles, the ones that we've been talking about, safety, some of the safety spots, cornerback, the linebacker Sam spot, I don't think that one is really nailed down to this point either, left tackle. So this is another week where guys can get in there and continue to fight over those spots. 44 was noted that FSU started running a lot of 2-back sets in the second half against LSU. Wonder if there's something there. Yeah, it might be. I don't know. LSU was not super impressive to me on Monday, and I know the minute that you say that, they'll end up coming out and win the national title. So I mean, you can never count LSU out, but they looked to me a lot like they did in Game 1 last year. I thought going into the LSU game last year when State played them, State had a chance to beat them, and they did. They were right there in position late in the third quarter and just kind of fell apart at Tiger Stadium. I still think that State can win that game. But, also Mason Smith being out was huge for them. I mean, that's something that you can't discount. That was a huge missing piece on the defensive line. So that's going to help them when they move forward. But, yeah, I thought Florida State just wore them out. End of the game, they just didn't look like LSU. JC, Mike Wright is a senior, but he has to have a COVID year, doesn't he? Could he come back? Yeah, he's got one more year, and I imagine he will come back. Deshaun, off topic, but our Steelers finna take care of the 49ers. Yes, sir. I'm so ready. I'm so ready until that first touchdown that the Steelers give up and the first fumble or interception, and then I'm going to absolutely hate my life. That's just how it goes. But coming into the season, I'm going to be obnoxious. I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to think that the Steelers are going to win the Super Bowl. until the ball is snapped, and then I will be absolutely miserable. Rodney Rhodes. Robbie, do you think the big transition to the state script happens if Cohen stays as AD? No, I don't. I do not. I don't think that there would be hardly any change for Mississippi State as far as logos are concerned. I don't think that the group that left and went from State to Auburn, I don't think that they wanted any of those logos around Mississippi State football at all. I think that if they would have had their way, it would have been the banner M and nothing else, and maybe every now and then have a alternate uniform once a year or something. But they were vehemently against other logos on the helmet, and it wasn't just Cohen that was pushing that; it was other people that were involved, and they were vehemently against that. And you would have never seen this kind of move from the banner on the helmet to being the primary being the state script. Never. So that's definitely the push that you've seen with the state script is definitely coming from this new regime. And I've heard that Selman is not a huge fan of the banner. That's why you're seeing it kind of disappear a little bit. Eventually, I don't think it's going to be involved in much of athletics. I think eventually it's going to be transitioned out completely. And at that point, Brian and myself would like a royalty check of at least 5% from everything that is sold at the Lodge, Maroon and Company, Campus Book Mart, or wherever you get your logos. Brian, Haydad, and myself, you make those checks out to Thunder and Lightning, and in parentheses, Robbie Falk, Brian Haydad. We'll take 5% of those earnings for those stores. Serious. I told you I wasn't going to be serious. I am serious about that. J-Mac, tell us about the new commitment. Yeah, I love this commitment. State picked up 2025 recruit A.J. Rice, and with a name like Rice and family in Crawford, Mississippi, yes, he does have an affiliation with Jerry. And, man, this kid is absolutely built. 6'2", 240, runs a 4.59 40-yard dash, so he can really move at his size, and comes from Madison Academy in Madison, Alabama, but has family from here. I think grew up here. You can read his story on 247. Paul Jones did a good job on that and caught up with him. But he's from the Crawford area. Grew up a huge State fan, so this is kind of a dream come true for him. And Paul made a good point on the board. All these people talk about they wish that they could get players like Alabama and LSU get, that their dream offers Mississippi State. But State gets a ton of guys like that. You just don't talk about it as much. There's a ton of guys they grew up wanting to play for Mississippi State, and A.J. Rice is one of those. He wanted to play for Mississippi State growing up, and he's a guy that I think is flying under the radar right now, but he's still a junior. He has a chance to really grow as a player, but he decided to go ahead and shut this thing down. And, looking at his offer list as a junior in high school, it's a good list. Cincinnati, Georgia Tech, South Carolina, Liberty, Troy, UAB. There's some group of 5 teams in there, but really good programs like Cincinnati and South Carolina in there as well. And to only be a junior, and he's got almost double-digit offers to this point, I like it. I really like to get 3-star. He's 22nd best player in the class in Alabama in 2025. But again, give it time. He has a really good junior season, and going into the summer and all that, he's a guy that could really blow up. I like this kid a lot. He's another guy in a long line of Matt Brock linebackers here that are really athletic, built really well, and are physical. I think this is a guy that can come in. He's not afraid to put his nose in there and hit somebody. I think he's a player that could probably play on the edge, setting the edge at linebacker in this 3-3-5. Already 6'2", 240, but he can run. I think he's one of those that can get after the quarterback a little bit. So I love it. I think he's a good pickup for State, and I've been impressed with Matt Brock's evaluations of his linebackers since he's gotten here. Justin Tidwell, does the weather affect Arizona this week? I think being at 6 p.m., not as much. If it was a 11 a.m. kick and it was, 95, 98 degrees outside, Arizona's not, it's not a team that's going to be thrown off by, 95 to 100 degrees. But the humidity factor, the way it feels down here is a little different than how it feels in Arizona. So that could play a factor. I don't think it's going to as much this week. I think they'll probably be fine, especially with a 6 p.m. kick. I don't think it's going to affect them too bad. And this is a team that comes from a hot climate. It's not like they're coming from the Pacific Northwest or a place like that that's just not used to this at all. I think that this is not completely comparable, but being in a steamy, hot climate like they are, it's not as bad as some other places might be in that transition. I thought it affected Utah last year when they had to come down to Florida. I'll put it that way. Or for, in State's case, going to a place of high altitude, a little harder to breathe, stuff like that. It probably won't be that much worse, if I don't think. 44 of these white unis will look better than the home ones. Yeah, I haven't seen. I saw a snippet of it when they showed it in the stadium. I don't know exactly what they look like, but I have been interested to see their white unis. I love the all white, but I was reading today by our good friend Hell State Unis on Twitter, who's one of my favorite follows on Twitter. I highly suggest that you go follow that person. Does a great job keeping up with the uniforms and stuff like that, even field designs. He was posting that today. I believe State's like 0-6 in all white uniforms, or in white uniforms, period, at home. So that's kind of scary. But, if you're one of those people that thinks that's ridiculous, that uniforms win or lose you ball games, then you shouldn't be concerned about that. But yeah, I am excited to see that. I like the concept of wearing all white uniforms in a whiteout, trying to encourage the whiteout. State fans, no offense, guys, but haven't been great in whiteouts. So wear white this week. Let's see if the stadium can actually be white, and everybody's wearing the same color this time in the whiteouts, because they finally got it right, and they finally did it when it's not cold and everybody's wearing jackets and stuff. Justin Tidwell, do we still have a chance with Norwell White? And I'm hearing Ole Miss has been talking to Jimothy Lewis daily. Is that something to be concerned about? As far as Norwell White is concerned, I saw a lot of people acting like that wasn't a big deal. He came to Starkville and he was actually recruiting for Ole Miss and stuff. What I would say to that is players committed elsewhere do not just drive from places like Ocean Springs to the rivals' ball games when their team is at home also, and also wear the rivals' colors, and not just colors, gear. He's wearing a Mississippi State shirt. That's not a good thing. I don't understand why people think that, oh, he was up there recruiting for... No, that's not what he was doing. You don't want your recruits going to your rival school to ball games. That's not going to help you. I don't understand. I remember people thinking that players were going to Mississippi State game days and were going to get recruited by, LSU. And it was actually a bad thing that they were at the game because LSU is going to be recruiting them. I mean, the guy's spending time getting wined and dined by Mississippi State staff. He's getting to see the game day atmosphere. He's hanging around a lot of Mississippi State commitments. He's not going to come in there and poison the water well and tell everybody to come to Ole Miss, and all of a sudden everybody's going to flip. So I don't understand that line of thinking, but that takes a warped individual and people that are hypnotized apparently to think that it's actually a good thing that their commitment is on campus elsewhere. That's not a good thing. So if you're one of those people out there, a fan of someone that is, getting that information and they think it's actually, oh yeah, he's actually, an agent for Ole Miss. He's actually going in there. No, he's not. That was not a good thing for Ole Miss. That was a good thing for Mississippi State. We'll see where that goes. I'm not like super optimistic, but this is a kid that's been committed a couple of times already. He had a lapse in judgment the other day on social media with a post he made. I mean, he's a kid, so he's going to make some rash decisions. I don't know what he's going to do, but again, it's not a good thing that he's at Mississippi State. It's a good thing for Mississippi State, and as far as Timothy Lewis, I mean, I'm sure they are talking to him daily until he goes on visits. I mean, I'm not super concerned about it, but I would say, he's one of the guys that it wouldn't shock me if he went somewhere else because he's, hardly been up here that much. He came in and committed kind of out of nowhere. So, we'll see what happens with him. But I haven't heard anything concerning to this point. He's been kind of flying under the radar with his recruitment and all that since he committed. J-Mac need Will to get more confidence to throw downfield. Yeah, and I think, a lot of that comes with confidence in the offense and some development up front and guys blocking better, running the football better, and, drawing the defense in. I mean, I think he's going to hit some shots downfield, and he hit a couple downfield in the game, but I think he'll get better. How about that? What are the chances the MSU interlocking becomes the full-time helmet? I mean, I haven't heard of anything yet. I think it would look great, but I just don't think right now. I don't think there's any plans for that. Might be a huge reaction against Kentucky that kind of sparks it to become more part of the rotation, but I haven't heard anything at this point just yet. Grant, watching Will Rogers throw to a guy in 85 just feels natural. Creed had a good freshman debut. Yeah, I kept thinking, oh, what's Austin Williams doing out there? This is year 8 for him now. But yeah, it was a little strange. And Creed is a different kind of player too than Austin. He can be a possession guy, but that's a guy that can, take the top off the defense. He can get past a secondary, break off a big run. I mean, I think that he's going to be a great player for Mississippi State before it's all said and done. You should be really excited about that kid. Robert Anthony, big fan of Talkin Dawgs. Appreciate it, man. I appreciate you guys being on here. This thing I started in 2021, I think, and it's just steadily grown. My goal was to eventually start getting 100 plus on here at a time. I'm hoping we get there, but we're coming along. If you had to correct one thing for the Arizona game, what would you say is the most important? And what do you think of the 9-point line? I think it's okay. I think, I would say, I could see State winning the game by 10. So, the line is fine. One thing that I would correct, tackling's got to improve. I don't know if I would go tackling because you know that these guys can do it. You got Jet Johnson and Nate Watson on this defense, and then the guys on the defensive line, they can tackle. Decameron Richardson can really tackle on the back end. Sean Preston's shown the ability. I would just make sure you shore that up a little bit. I don't know if it's that or if it's, some things that they're doing in the blocking scheme or the way that they're blocking. They need to be better, like I said earlier, on the perimeter. I think wide receivers and tight ends got to do a better job. You get a better block by your tight end on that big run from Mike Wright, he scores. And instead, he didn't get in the end zone. He was pushed out inside the 10. So needed one more block, didn't get it. That's the difference sometimes in a touchdown and even, no points at all on a possession. So they got to execute their blocks better. And the offensive line, same thing. I mean, I didn't think they were getting the push that they really needed. And that's something that they got to get better at because you got some great defensive lines coming in. There's not many more teams like Southeastern Louisiana on the schedule. So they've got to improve there. So I don't know if it would be the tackling or the blocking. Maybe it would be the blocking. JC, who do you consider Winston Academy's biggest rival? I think it's probably Leak, although they haven't had a ton of success against them, especially in the last 15 years or so. It would probably be Leak from just like a school standpoint. It's not that far away. So, yeah, I mean, that would probably be the one that I say. I mean, Starkville Academy's somewhat there, but Starkville Academy's had a lot of success against them too. I mean, there's just not a lot of teams that they've had a lot of back and forth with of late. But I'm hopeful it's getting better. 44, do you think we'll get a cream at some point on the jerseys? Hill State Uni's had a concept. That'd be cool. I really like the cream jerseys in baseball and basketball. Wouldn't be opposed to it. Daryl O'Brien, overall okay. The defense improved and threw a shutout. I was surprised by the pass defense, 18 yards. Was it 148? Yeah. Yeah, not a ton of. I mean, that one drive, I thought the pass defense was bad. There was a lot of cushion, didn't really do a whole lot. There's guys wide open that were losing the tight end, but I thought they got better. Defense, not a ton to be upset about. That one drive was very glaring. They can't have drives like that. A lot of missed tackles, some misalignments, not fitting gaps the way that they should. They didn't set the edge with the Sam linebacker. They got to figure out Sam linebacker. They got to get a guy in there that's going to be athletic enough that can get around, bend around the right tackle, and cause some havoc there in the backfield. They don't have a whole lot of Tyrus Wheats. I think guys like John Lewis are capable of doing that, but he's got to get in there and do it. He had a really good game on special teams. Need to see him in there doing some things on defense as well. Bassin and duck hunting. What's the deal with Spivey? I mentioned it earlier. The depth chart, throw out the depth chart. They're just going to use the same one every week. It doesn't matter. He's not eligible. And if you want to hear, I won't go into it again because I talked about it earlier. You can go back and watch that if you don't mind. But yeah, the short answer, not eligible. The appeal got denied last week. C. Lee, I wouldn't mind Harmon getting a few more targets this weekend. Yeah, he needs those. He also he's got to get his blocking down. He's fine as a receiver, but part of playing tight end is not only catching the football, you got to block. And, he's the guy on that long run, didn't make the block that he needed to make, and that would have really freed Mike Wright, I think, for a touchdown. Got to have him take that next step. And in fairness, this is a guy that's transitioning from wide receiver to tight end. It's a different position. So he's still new to it, but probably State's most talented wide receiver or receiving tight end that they have. And that's a guy that they need. So he needs to be on the field playing at his best. They need him to be part of this offense, I think, just to have another option there. 44, really want to see Parson run a drive. Yeah, I just want to make sure that he doesn't burn a red shirt. You'd love to redshirt him this year, but yeah, I would like to see him play a little bit every now and then too. First game would have been a possibility, but you really got to manage these carefully. If you think about it, I mean, you got 12 games. These guys get 4 games until they can redshirt. So you got to be careful with them. You really want to redshirt this guy and make sure that he's a redshirt freshman next year. He's got his full allotment of eligibility. Jackson, Kanan Daniels looked insane against Starkville. Florida being god awful has to help us. Yeah, he looked really good. Such a weird situation with Kanan Daniels. He is not a typical West Point kid. And by that I mean a guy that, you just basically pencil in to come to Mississippi State. State usually has a great chance of getting those guys. And he just doesn't seem interested. For whatever reason, just doesn't seem interested. I don't think his family is super interested about staying inside the state of Mississippi. But yeah, Florida, that is a very iffy situation over there. And if they continue to really struggle, it's going to be hard to imagine Billy Napier sticking around. So that would definitely open up some avenues there. You've got to just continue to recruit this kid as hard as you can. Even if he doesn't seem interested right now, when a coach leaves and, the possibility of new coaching staff and you don't know who this guy is, when that, comes to fruition, if it does, that changes a lot of players' minds. So you just keep recruiting him and see what happens. You really need to get him over on campus a little bit and keep building that relationship. But yeah, he would be a great member of this class, but he just doesn't seem interested in state. 44, I like our chances to stretch the perimeter against LSU. We've got speed everywhere. They do. They have some speed out there. I think the offense is faster. I thought Jacoby Belzar was really swift the other day when he got that jet sweep. But you got some guys that can really run it. And in some of these situations, when you see opportunities to exploit some defenses, utilizing Mike Wright in there, utilizing some jet sweeps, some pop passes, stuff to get some of these playmakers the ball in space that can really, attack these defenses, then I think that, you got to exploit it. And I think that's the good thing about Kevin Barbay. With the air raid, it was, kind of the same thing every week. You were what you were offensively, and defenses were going to have to stop it. They knew what they were game planning for, but you were going to run your thing. This offense is a little different. It can be a little unpredictable in some ways. Some days you might come out and throw the football 50 times. Some days you might run it 50 times. That's just what this offense is going to be, and that's what's going to be so interesting. Week by week, you're going to see different game plans based on what they see. You're going to get the ball in playmakers' hands. It's just a common sense offense to me. C. Lee, I liked what I saw out of Jeffrey Pittman when he ran the ball. Yeah, really impressed with Jeffrey in that ball game. I was, quite frankly, a little surprised that he got the playing time he got, just because with the depth that they have, it kind of felt like he was a guy that was sinking on the depth chart a little bit, probably going to be a guy that you redshirt if you could. But the few carries that I saw, he looks like a guy that's going to be one of those workhorse running backs, the guys that, is going to move the chains. He had 3 carries, 14 yards, solid 3 carries for him. A couple of those were, ones that would move the chains, get him a first down. I think he could be a guy like that for Mississippi State. Is it Robo 4071? Which position group do you think needs the most improvement on State's team? Good question. I still want to see the defensive back group improve as a whole, cornerbacks and safeties. Offensive line needs to take a step. That's an experienced group, but they've got to be solid. I mean, you can't be having a whole lot of issues up front. You got to be better there. So those are my two groups, and those are kind of the groups that we talked about coming into the season. Really, that were the bigger question marks for Mississippi State: offensive line, and safeties, and those are pretty important groups. So that you need to continue to get better there. All right, anybody else? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Game time 6 p.m. I think on ESPN. I'll double check that. I believe it's the SEC network crew, the primetime crew, Cole Kubelik, Tom Hart. 6:30 is and it's not ESPN. I'm an idiot. Don't listen to me. It's the SEC network. 6:30. I promise that's correct because I'm looking at it right now. ESPN's next week against LSU. So 6:30, SEC Network. Tom Hart's on the call. Cole Kubelik, whoever else, Jordan Rogers, whoever. So it should be a good one. And also, by the way, a little insider information I heard from a little birdie today. We might see Dan Mullen back at Davis Wade Stadium for the Egg Bowl. That's going to be weird. I've heard that Dan Mullen's calling Thursday night football games this year, and he will be calling the Mississippi State Ole Miss game during the Egg Bowl. And again, that is going to be really weird to see him up there in the press box. But hopefully we can shoot the bull and I don't know, talk about old times. I don't know. We had some good times back in the day, I guess. Bassing and duck hunting, we talked about that above. So you can go check that out too. But other than that, I guess we will shut her down. I appreciate you guys. Again, great crew on here tonight, almost 1 hour long on this thing. If you missed any of it, this is going to be, it should go right back on the YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch, fast forward, whatever. Get the hot spots where you missed it. We talked about the bass and duck hunting's question. We talked about Norwell White coming to campus. We talked about Jaquarius Spivey, Xavier Thomas, all that good stuff. So you can go back and watch that if you want to. And make sure you're on our website all week. We are just pouring out content at this point. So we would love to have you come check us out over there. Got some great content all week long leading up to the Arizona game. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you aren't already. I'd really appreciate that. Go subscribe to Thunder and Lightning Podcast. Check out Brian Haydad and myself 5 days a week talking Mississippi State sports just like this. We got the rumblings coming up tomorrow, so if you guys want to send in some questions to myself and Brian on Twitter, go do that. Go get you a Starkville Daily News and support your local newspaper as well. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all. Again, I'll say it. If you see me, if you see any of us around on campus this weekend at the Junction, come up to us, say hey. We'll talk a little sports if I'm around. Would love to meet you guys. I appreciate the ones that are in here, the ones that support us. We couldn't do any of this stuff without the fans. We love the fans. We love the passion that you guys have for Mississippi State sports. So, appreciate you. Have a good day. We'll catch you down the road.